tried to silence him. They erased his name. But he rebuilt from nothing. He fought every algorithm. They tried again and failed. Now he's back, stronger. From blackout to spotlight, he's at the White House, at the top of his game. Franchi lives.
You are about to enter another dimension, a dimension of truth, unfiltered and uncensored. Welcome to the Raw Feed with Gary Franchi.
Welcome to the Raw Feed. I'm Gary Franchi, coming to you live from the heart of America. Unfiltered truth to millions on YouTube. Hit those donation links below. Every contribution powers our gear. Every contribution keeps the party going. Help me help you. Hit those donation links. YouTube channel memberships. Special acknowledgement in the fellowship. Your super chats keep me standing. Your Rumble rants fuel every round.
Say hello to super chats.
Spread the intel. Every repost extends our reach.
Super chats fuel this spectacle. Your Rumble rants give me strength.
24/7 members-only community, behind-the-scenes discussions.
Connect with fellow patriots.
My mama always said, life is like sharing the truth. Text this stream to your friends.
What if I told you the app is real? Download the Next News Network app. Android users, take the Google Play path. iPhone users, App Store awaits.
The Federal Reserve Chairman may be heading to prison. That's not speculation. That is where this story is going. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to the Raw Feed. I'm Gary Franchi. Right now we're tracking developments that are shaking the foundations of American power. Excuse me. 35 years ago, on January 12th, 1991, even though it's the 13th, Congress made one of the most consequential decisions in modern American history. They authorized military force against Iraq in the Persian Gulf. It was the most divided congressional war vote since 1812, but they did it because America's national interest demanded action. They did it because leadership requires clarity. They did it because when adversaries threaten stability, you do not negotiate from weakness, even though the entire thing was a farce. Now, that moment echoes tonight across every story that we're tracking. Because what's happening right now in America is a test of whether this country still has the will to defend itself, enforce its own laws, and hold the powerful accountable. The Jerome Powell investigation has escalated exactly as we told you it would. The DOJ has served grand jury subpoenas on the Federal Reserve itself. Paulina Luna has formally referred Powell for criminal investigation, and Peter Navarro went on record calling him the poster child for a politicized Fed. And now we're hearing President Trump is preparing to announce Powell's replacement. $4 billion in questionable spending, the highest construction costs in world history. And testimony to Congress that critics say was false. This is the beginning of the end of the Federal Reserve as we've known it. Finally. Meanwhile, President Trump continues forcing the Greenland question into the open, and the establishment is freaking out because he's telling the truth. Greenland controls North Atlantic defense, missile warning systems, and Arctic sea lanes. 2/3 of NATO's military capability comes from the United States. 2/3. Trump said it plainly: if we don't secure Greenland, Russia or China will. Denmark's prime minister calls it a fateful moment. The media screams invasion, but there is no invasion. There's only clarity, and clarity terrifies people who have profited from confusion for decades. In Minnesota, the fraud scandal we've been following has reached a new breaking point. Several $100 million in cash reportedly intercepted, smuggled out through Somali courier networks. Governor Tim Walz facing criminal referrals, Ilhan Omar under investigation for allegedly enriching herself through the same networks now being dismantled. Jacob Frey, the mayor who denied it for years, now admits the fraud is very real. Investigators are warning that the next video release will be 10 times worse than what already shocked the nation. Federal agents continue surging into Minneapolis. Over 1,000 arrests and counting. This is not a Minnesota problem anymore. This is a national reckoning. And the violence has arrived. ICE officers remain under siege in Minneapolis. You've seen the body cam footage. A woman weaponized her vehicle against federal agents. Secretary Kristi Noem calling it domestic terrorism enabled by sanctuary politicians who spent years demonizing law enforcement. Agitators are openly calling for armed resistance. Reporters are attacked, vehicles smashed. President Trump has vowed to identify whoever is funding this chaos. George Soros. And Governor Abbott reminded everybody watching, Texas is not Minnesota. And now the fire spreads west. California is bracing for impact as investigators expose the same patterns. $32 billion in unemployment fraud ignored despite warnings. $24 billion spent on homelessness with nothing to show but encampments and decay. Ghost daycares, NGO money laundering. Benny Johnson says that what they've uncovered will enrage every taxpayer in America. Gavin Newsom watched Tim Walz fall. He knows he's next. Fraud is a career killer. So 35 years ago, today, well, yesterday really, Congress chose clarity over comfort. They chose action over paralysis. They chose to defend American interests even when it was hard and the evidence was fabricated. Tonight, we're watching whether this generation has the same resolve. The Fed is exposed. The Arctic's in play. Minnesota is burning. California is next, and the rule of law hangs in the balance. This is the Raw Feed. Now, let's get to work and welcome you to the show. Who's in the house tonight? Good to see everybody here. We got Michael and Mazik and Rumblebot. Okay, so for some reason, the YouTube chat is not registering on the page. Okay, so only Rumble chats today. And we do have a new page that we are testing out tonight. You can check it out if you'd like. Yeah, X usually connects to the page. Let's see. System is online. Okay. Yeah, the new page we have set up is rawfeed.live/live. And you could watch the show over there if you so choose. We'll be adding more features to that page as it becomes available. So situations like this where we have the Rumble only chat, maybe we can get a cleaner integration with YouTube chat, Rumble chat, X, whatever. But that all remains to be on the to-do list to be built. Buck Wayne, Michael Jones. Yeah, it's good to see you guys over there on Rumble. Okay. Now, Brian, let's go ahead and get this first story in the can. We got to talk about the Federal Reserve finally ending it. This is beautiful, man. I'm really excited about this. Brian, make sure you hit your mark in. The man who controls America's money supply is now staring down a criminal investigation. Grand jury subpoenas have landed on the Federal Reserve. And the chairman who told Congress everything was fine, well, he may have actually lied under oath. The DOJ is not asking questions anymore. They are building a case, and what they've found could bring down the most powerful institution on earth. But here's what they don't want you to know. Think about what's at stake. Jerome Powell oversees the institution that prints your money, sets your interest rates, and determines whether your savings grow or shrink. For years, the Fed operated like a shadow government, accountable to no one. Now we're learning that billions of taxpayer dollars may have been funneled into a renovation project with the highest construction costs in world history, $4 billion. And when Congress asked questions, Powell allegedly gave answers that don't match reality. If the chairman of the Federal Reserve can lie to Congress and get away with it, then no one is accountable. If you can spend your money without oversight, then the system is rigged beyond repair. See, it's not just about a man. It's about whether the people who control your economy answer to anyone at all. And right now, the answer is being decided. Now, if you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Well, many investors discover that they have little exposure to precious metals. That means savings tied to markets, policies, and paper assets with very little protection if conditions change, like we're seeing now with the Fed. You see, that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold. No pressure, no gimmicks, just clear answers. The link down below is nextnewsgold.com, or you can call that number on the screen. Now back to the Fed. It gets absolutely worse. Peter Navarro just went scorched earth, calling Powell the poster child for politicizing the Fed. He says, "We know Powell made false statements. And Paulina Luna has formally referred him to the DOJ for criminal investigation." And here's the part that should terrify the establishment. President Trump is reportedly on the verge of announcing Powell's replacement, the man who printed money into oblivion during COVID, who triggered the inflation-crushing American families, who may have lied to Congress about billions in spending, could be out within days. The Fed's legitimacy is collapsing in real time. And what you're seeing on the screen here, this is some of the renovations. I believe these may be mock-ups or, artistic renditions of what's to expect at the tomb of America's money supply. I say that because the exterior certainly looks like a morgue or a tomb. Certainly, I mean, the same architectural elements that you see on the outside of the Fed reflecting on the inside atriums. I mean, look at these opulent hallways. Who's ever going to sit in those couches? Ever? Really? You need all those couches? No one's ever going to sit in them. Look at, they got a nice little atrium, open air feel, little coffee area. How beautiful, huh? Must be nice to be a central banker, especially with no accountability. Here's what the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, had to say regarding the Federal Reserve chair. Brian, can we get some audio on this track?
Public that is long. Did the president ever direct DOJ officials to open an investigation into Powell? No. And can you reassure the American public that his longstanding criticisms and public comments about Powell had nothing to do with the investigation?
Look, the president has every right to criticize the Fed chair. He has a First Amendment right, just like all of you do. And one thing for sure, the president's made it quite clear, is Jerome Powell is bad at his job. As for whether or not Jerome Powell is a criminal, that's an answer the Department of Justice is going to have to find out, and it looks like they intend to find that out.
Did the president ever direct DOJ officials to open an investigation into Powell?
No.
And can you reassure the American public that his longstanding criticisms and public comments about Powell had nothing to do with the investigation?
Look, the president has every right to criticize the Fed chair. He has a First Amendment right, just like all of you do. And one thing for sure, the president's made it quite clear, is Jerome Powell is bad at his job.
He's bad at his job, no question. Time to end the Fed. Here we have this. This is U.S. House of Representative Paulina Luna, formally referring Jerome Powell to the DOJ for criminal investigation. Chairman Powell knowingly misled both Congress and executive branch officials about the true nature of the taxpayer-funded project. Lying under oath is a serious offense, especially from someone asked with overseeing our monetary system and public trust. Inside the Federal Reserve, a hidden camera captures a principal economist at the Fed admitting that Jerome Powell's legacy is somebody who held the line against Trump and deliberately hurting the U.S. economy. Ariel Hismo, principal economist at the Fed, who prior to working at the Fed was an assistant professor at NYU, helps write speeches for Jerome Powell for the Federal Open Market Committee. Check this out.
He wants to be remembered in history. Principal economist. Right now, I'm preparing for something. I'm going to do a talk to the Fed board.
Meet Jerome Hismo. He's a principal economist working inside the Federal Reserve.
So you write speeches for Powell?
Yeah, like for certain paragraphs. I'm just really worried that I'm saying stuff like stuff that's classified.
Do you deal with classified stuff?
It's all classified. Right?
Quote, it's all classified.
It's all classified. Trump is a crazy person. It's very clear. I mean, he's a dumb guy.
Does he hate Trump? And is the feeling neutral?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And Trump was president. He wanted to stimulate the economy.
Right.
But he wouldn't do it. And he started raising interest rates, doing the opposite that Trump wanted. So the feeling is this, that we don't want Trump to be in government.
Right.
Jerome Hismo, principal economist with the Federal Reserve, says Jerome Powell wants to go down in history as someone who, quote, held the line against Donald Trump, unquote.
He's doing it for the legacy. He wants to be remembered in history as somebody who held the line against like Trump and somebody who helped the economy.
So he wants to preserve his legacy as someone
that even though he's Republican on paper, Democrats still love him.
Yeah, because he's responsive. Under Powell, the Fed has changed to think about equity issues like racial issues, think about wealth inequality as part of the mandate, as part of the things we're following. Think about climate change.
Jerome Hismo says, quote, people think conservatives are dumb, and that the, quote, Federal Reserve would discriminate against those conservatives depending on how out there they are.
People think they're dumb.
would they be discriminated against?
I mean, it depends on how out there they are. He's doing it for the legacy. As somebody who held the line against like Trump.
In today's unpredictable world, it's all about being prepared for who knows what they have in store for the next pandemic. Our friends and supporters at the Wellness Company have designed this unique prescription-based medical emergency kit that is packed with 8 potentially life-saving prescription-only medications, including Z-Pact and ivermectin.
So that is the report that was put out by O'Keefe Media Group. It's about 14 minutes long. So you got a little taste of it. And you can check out their X account if you want to watch it in full, or their YouTube. But this is the Fox News headline: Fed Chair Jerome Powell hit with criminal referral by House GOP Representative Luna. That was back in July 21st of 2025. So those referrals have now dropped. Trump advisor Peter Navarro eviscerates the Fed chair. Check this out. This is on Fox Business.
The poster respect to Chairman Powell. First of all, the Fed is politicized. Chairman Powell is the worst Fed chair since Arthur Burns, and he is the poster child for politicizing the Fed. The only reason why he's still there is because he papered over the fiscal irresponsibility of Joe Biden and got America into an inflation crisis that President Trump is in the process of curing. So spare me on that. But if you actually look at what he's being investigated for, I mean, look, it looks like there's like luxury elevators and dining rooms. He claims that the thing was never renovated before when in fact it was. And it's just, let's see what the investigation says. And the funny part, like, just Powell gets up there and says it's politicized and it's the tariffs that's the problem, why the costs went up. Hey, come on, Jay. Just do your job. Since you got there, you made three major blunders that have cost this economy $1 trillion easily. So let's see what happens with this investigation. The only question is, Maria, we know he made false statements. The only question is whether he was aware and did it with malice. And think about that. If he was ignorant about it, that tells you how ignorant he is when he runs Fed policy. Respect to Chairman Powell. First of all, the Fed...
Is he ignorant? That just shows how ignorant he is. But if he did it maliciously, that's a whole nother story. Let's keep going. We got some more here. This appears to be the testimony in question related to the criminal investigation into Chairman Jerome Powell. Let's listen. It's about 2 minutes.
Explain to the committee. Would you talk a little bit about just exactly what's going on with your building? When you have that type of an overrun on the prices and you're talking about billions of dollars in costs, I think it's appropriate for you to be able to explain to the committee exactly what's going on. Would you take a few minutes, please, and explain what's going on with the value of that building and why the costs seem to be so exorbitant?
I'd be glad to if I can have that time. So
please.
Thank you for the letter we received late yesterday. We will provide a much more detailed response, but just generally, I would just say we do take seriously our responsibility as stewards of the public's money. And the other thing I would start with is no one in office wants to do a major renovation of a historic building during their term in office. You much prefer to leave that to your successors. And this is a great example why, let alone two historic buildings that needed a lot of work. But we decided to take it on because, honestly, when I was the administrative governor before I became chair, I came to understand how badly the Eccles building really needed a serious renovation. It never had one. It was not really safe, and it was not waterproof and that kind of thing. So we took it on. I would also say that the media reports that you accurately quoted, they're misleading and inaccurate in many, many respects. And I would just point to, there's no VPI dining room. There's no new marble. We took down the old marble. We're putting it back up. We'll have to use new marble where some of the old marble broke, but there's no new, there are no special elevators. They're old elevators that have been there. There are no new water features. There's no beehives, and there's no roof terrace gardens. Other than that, so all of the sort of inflammatory things that the media carried are either not in the current plan or just inaccurate. So, but notwithstanding that, the cost overruns are what they are. So let me just say on that.
Well, we're well over the 5-minute mark. I'm happy to give you time to talk about that. I'm happy that there are no beehives in there, but we're going to figure out what they are anyways.
Would you talk a little bit about just exactly what's going on with your building?
So that's the testimony that's in question, where they're stating he is flat out lying. And this is that moment when President Trump, I love playing this clip because it's historic in nature with respect to what President Trump did when he confronted the Fed chair at the renovation project.
Our notes had
billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added.
Our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening, and it's got a long way. Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them, but we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use, but no, we don't. We expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
Nice to take these off every once in a while when we're not at $1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
Oh, man. History right there. Getting confronted. Here's the NEC director, Kevin Hassett, talking about the output numbers in the fourth quarter. Trump policies actually working. And then we're going to get into some more of the remarks, especially the remarks that Jerome Powell made when he was forced to go in front of the camera.
People who are right. Well, it's changing for two reasons. It's changing because we've got government employees that have been laid off because President Trump is reducing government spending. That's about 250,000 workers this year. That's a lot. And we also have people who are being, deported and re-domiciled because they were here illegally and working. And I think if you add those two things, then a good, healthy labor report is probably closer to 70,000 than 140, 150,000, right, which is what it was back in the day. And so bottom line right now, I'm looking at the output numbers, and we got GDP now north of 5% in the fourth quarter after 4% the previous quarter. So I think you got to say that Trump policies are really working. They're really working.
Trump policies in effect, and when Powell's gone, it's going to be even better. President Trump on the verge of announcing his replacement of Fed Chair Powell.
Of global income, former Fed Board of Governor Kevin Warsh, current director of the National Economic Council Kevin Hassett, current Federal Reserve Board of Governor Chris Waller, and now BlackRock Chief Investment Officer of Global Income Rick Rieder. The president says he's going to decide on his next pick for Fed Chair this month. Dana?
Okay.
Oh, no.
Former Fed Board of Governor Kevin Warsh, current director of the National Economic Council Kevin Hassett, current Federal Reserve Board of Governor Chris Waller, and now BlackRock Chief Investment Officer of Global...
Kevin, if they move Kevin Hassett out of his position, that could be a little bit of a shakeup. BlackRock, I don't think we want BlackRock in there, but you got Warsh and Waller would probably be better picks because they're already inside the Fed. Here is Kevin Hassett talking about the DOJ probe. This is at the Sticks at the White House.
Begin with this subpoena to the Fed. Are you able to say what the president signed off on this action?
No, I don't have any information. I've not seen any communication from the Justice Department. That I respect the independence of the Justice Department and the Fed, but I've not seen any materials that have been handed to the Fed by the Justice Department.
And you don't know whether the president personally approved on this?
I do not, yeah.
But can you say whether you have any thoughts about what impact this could have on the markets?
I would expect that the markets would be happy to see that there's more transparency with the Fed. It's something that people have been calling for quite a long time.
Are you worried that the probe undermines the independence of the central bank and could destabilize the markets?
I guess the question is, if you think the building costs $20 billion or $10 billion, do you think at some point that it's appropriate for the federal government to investigate? And seems like the Justice Department has decided that they want to see what's going on over there with this building that's, massively more expensive than any building in the history of Washington. And if I were Fed chair, I would want them to do that. I think that it's really important to understand where the taxpayer money goes and to understand why it goes this way or that.
Do you think there's a chance Powell will stay on as a governor on the board even after his term as chair?
I'm not sure about that. I've not talked to Jay about that. He's a good person. If he wants to continue government service, then he'll make that call when the time comes.
Do you think that would be something the next Fed chair, whether it's yourself or someone else, live with?
Yeah, we would have to see how it goes, but Jay's a good person.
And you're still interested in the job?
Yes, of course.
Do you have any updated timeline on when the president will make an announcement, before Davos, perhaps?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you.
At Davos, perhaps. Well, Davos is going to get a reckoning when Trump shows up. Let's keep going here. Jerome Powell announcing DOJ opening an investigation into him. Let's hear what this guy's got to say.
Investigation into Jerome Powell just took the gloves off in his battle versus Trump. In a shocking Sunday night video, the Fed chair said the DOJ is conducting a criminal investigation into his congressional testimony about the central bank's renovation to its headquarters. Powell argued this investigation had nothing to do with construction overruns and everything to do with political intimidation around his interest rate decisions. Powell framed the investigation in existential terms, claiming the future of the central bank's independence is at stake. And investors agreed. This morning, the Sell America trade is rippling through Wall Street. The safe haven gold spiked to a record high, while the dollar, treasuries, and stocks all slid. Jerome Powell just took the gloves off in his battle versus...
We're going to investigate the markets on that in a moment. But let's go to the Fed chair directly. Trish Reagan says Powell is definitely not stepping down now. He's going to hang on for dear life. For what it's worth, he may not be the brightest, printing into oblivion during COVID and then forevermore for starters, and thereby creating mass inflation. But the criminal charges about lying to Congress, those are going to be a stretch. This is going to be a tough case, and if you wanted to get rid of him at this point, we all do. This may not be the best strategy, is calling it as I see it. That's what Trish Reagan says. But you know what? Let Trump do what he's got to do.
This new threat.
Here is the Fed chair.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned, in part, a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project.
Yeah, but it's what you said to Congress. That's what's being called into question. Not what you printed, not when you published, not the letters you wrote. It's about what you said under oath, buddy.
Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public.
Yeah, but James O'Keefe's investigation had a little bit of a background that contradicts what you're saying right now, Mr. Powell.
Rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability.
Can we get him on lies here? Oh, he's not under oath here, I guess.
Maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you. Good evening.
So here's the bottom line. The Federal Reserve has operated for over a century as untouchable, above the law, beyond accountability. That era is ending. Grand jury subpoenas are real. The criminal referral is real. The $4 billion scandal is real. And if Jerome Powell goes down, the shockwaves will tear through the global financial order. This is not the end of the story. This is the beginning of the reckoning for the most powerful institution most Americans don't even understand. Now, this matters because the Federal Reserve touches every aspect of your life. The price of your groceries, your mortgage rate, the value of your retirement savings. For decades, unelected bureaucrats have made decisions affecting 300 million Americans without ever facing consequences. Well, that's all changing right now. Jerome Powell's under criminal investigation for allegedly lying to Congress about billions in taxpayer money. The subpoenas have been served, the referrals have been made, and Trump is ready to replace him. So the question is simple. Should the chairman of the Federal Reserve face the same justice system as every other American? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the chat right now. And if you want to show the world where you stand on accountability, hit up the Next News merch shop, linked in the description. We got some new designs dropping, so wear your values proud. This is about more than Powell. This is about whether anyone in Washington actually answers to you. All right. Brian, just want to confirm that you did hit the mark in point. Okay. 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 All right, we'll wait for Brian to let the dogs out. And while he's doing that, we are going to load up our next topic for you. Because Greenland, excuse me, Greenland is in play. It's a big deal. Probably one of the biggest strategic moves that President Trump can do right now. Making huge strategic moves everywhere on the planet. And it's rather exciting to watch, whether it's in the border or sanctuary cities or Minneapolis or California or Illinois, whether it's at Davos upcoming, the Federal Reserve. I mean, the shakeup that President Trump is doing right now is absolutely wild. So we're going to wait for our system to come back online while Brian is doing that. Okay, so it's the system itself, Brian, is rechecking the servers, and it'll probably be up momentarily. In the meantime, just pretend everything is working. All right. So when you're ready, we can shift it over to topic 2, and we will begin. Make Greenland great again. The media wants you to believe America is about to invade Greenland. They're running headlines about military campaigns and NATO collapse, but there's only a problem. None of it's true. What's actually happening is far more dangerous to the establishment than any invasion. The President of the United States is telling the truth about power, and the people who've been lying about it for decades are terrified. Now, here's what they're hiding. You see, Greenland is not a symbolic rock in the middle of nowhere. It's the keystone of North Atlantic defense. Missile early warning systems, Arctic sea lanes, and the front line of great power competition with Russia and China. The United States already carries the overwhelming burden of defending Greenland through NATO. 2/3 of the alliance's military capability comes from America. That's not opinion, that's called math. And for decades, European allies have freeloaded on American taxpayers while underinvesting in their own defense. Now Trump is forcing the conversation into the open. He said, if we don't secure Greenland, Russia or China will take it. It's not a threat. That's a warning based on geography and hard power. Denmark's prime minister says they are at a fateful moment, and she's right, but the fate being decided isn't Greenland's. It's whether America continues subsidizing an alliance that doesn't carry its weight. Now we have some breaking news, a strategic metals alert the public rarely hears, a metal that most Americans overlook, but governments and defense contractors monitor daily. I'm talking about titanium. One company moving into position is Saga Metals, trading as SAGMF in the United States and SAGA in Canada. Now, titanium is lightweight, exceptionally strong, and corrosion resistant, making it vital for modern defense systems. Now, nearly 20% of total titanium consumption goes into defense, and F-35 fighter jets can be up to 40% titanium by weight. North America's titanium supply is tightening fast, and while Greenland emerges as a strategic titanium hub under President Trump, the push for domestic resource independence sets the stage for companies like Saga to benefit. Now, Saga Metals is drilling at early stage valuations as titanium rises to the top of national security priorities. You can find out more about Saga Metals by hitting the link down below. Now, here is where it gets interesting. Stephen Miller was asked a loaded question designed to manufacture fear. He refused to play along. Instead of taking the bait, he told the truth about who actually defends Greenland. The media called it a threat, but commentators are now pointing out the obvious. The anti-Trump hysteria is entirely manufactured. Trump's approach has always been about leverage and clarity. Strong language, media panic, then quiet recalibration. No invasion required, just accountability. And that's exactly what the establishment cannot tolerate. Let's go and check in with Stephen Miller's hit on CNN.
Important topic. The premier of Greenland and the premier of Denmark and other Danish officials are responding to a Twitter post from your wife, Katie Miller, herself a former Trump White House official, showing Greenland covered with an American flag, saying soon. After that was posted, President Trump repeated the claim that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security reasons. The Danish prime minister responded to this in an interview earlier today, as reported by Bloomberg, quote, "I believe one should take the American president seriously when he says it wants Greenland, but I will also make it clear that if the U.S. chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including NATO, and thus the security that has been established since the end of the Second World War." Can you rule out that the U.S. is ever going to try to take Greenland by force?
Well, let me go back a step. The president has been clear for months now, so I know you're treating this as breaking news. The president has been clear for months now that the United States should be the nation that has Greenland as part of our overall security apparatus. The United
Right, but
States,
your wife posted that like hours after the Venezuela operation.
No, but
that's why it's newly relevant.
No, I'm not, and I'll talk with you about it for an hour. I think it's a really important conversation. I just wanted to reset, Jake, by making clear that it has been the formal position of the U.S. government since the beginning of this administration, frankly, going back into the previous Trump administration, that Greenland should be part of the United States. The president has been very clear about that. That is the formal position of the U.S. government.
Right, but can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
It wouldn't be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out the United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to even think or talk about this in the context that you're asking of a military operation. Nobody's going to fight the United States militarily over the future of Greenland. So
One
the
last question,
doesn't
Stephen.
make any sense.
One last question. Important topic. The premier of Greenland and the premier of Denmark and other.
Well, he didn't take it off the table. He did kind of call it absurd that we would invade Greenland when they have a population of 30,000 people. The bigger question that's in play here is the reality that he pointed out with respect to that we are majority NATO backing. Our American taxpayers fund the majority of NATO. What claim does Denmark have? It's really a strategic importance to us. So basically, we should just claim it because we're already protecting it to begin with, right? Through NATO. What would happen if China or Russia did aggressively take over Greenland? It would trigger NATO's defense clause, and then the United States would have to go in there and fix it. And then, you know, the Canadians and the French would send 20 soldiers and maybe a couple canoes or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, we would be the majority force that would be protecting that nation. So in that logic, it makes perfect sense. If we're already majority, then just go ahead and just redraw the lines, put it in our corner, and we'll take care of the rest. You guys can keep going with your, whatever it is you do at NATO. Let's hear the vice president's remarks with respect to, he's saying Denmark is not doing enough to keep Greenland safe. That's because we're the majority stakeholder in NATO.
This is about. That's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. That's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested.
Underinvested. You've not supported them. Here is Ted Lieu. Not a joke, calls for disobedience inside the U.S. military. Ted Lieu warns the troops, if Trump orders an attack, don't obey. Didn't we have a problem with this already, a seditious 6? Do we have a seditious 7 now?
Including if any military member, including the generals on down to enlisted members, if any of them participate in the use of military force against Greenland without congressional authorization, they are following illegal orders. That's simply a fact.
Last one.
If any military member, including the generals on down to enlisted members, if any of them participate in the use of military force against Greenland without congressional authorization, they are following illegal orders. That's simply a fact.
Last one.
Not going to end well for him either, but he doesn't have a rank to be demoted, though. Okay, Denmark is frantic after President Trump orders his military chiefs to drop an invasion plan of Greenland ahead of Marco Rubio's meeting with them this week. Stephen Miller reported leading the plan. China and Russia will not have control of the region. This is according to the Daily Mail. President Trump orders his chiefs to drop an invasion plan. Really, what's that mean?
Of this doctor and the Daily Mail reporting on it today, saying sources say that the policy hawks around the U.S. president, led by political advisor Stephen Miller, have been so emboldened by the success of the operation to capture Venezuelan's leader Nicolas Maduro that they want to move quickly to seize the island before Russia or China makes a move.
Well, this idea of Greenland. We remember in the early days of this administration, I think J.D. Vance and his wife took a trip out to Greenland. There was Charlie Kirk flew out to Greenland as well. So there's been talk about this. To some liberals and who don't yet understand President Trump because they have Trump derangement syndrome, this sounds crazy and authoritarian, but it's actually a very rational move if your goal is to position the United States as the global leader in this world. I say that because right now, whether you want to admit it or know it or not, we are in the middle of an AI war that's heating up between the United States and China. And what we need to win that war is we need to have 2 to 3 times more the capacity of electricity, and we need more rare earth minerals. And so President Trump is doing something, in my opinion, that presidents rarely ever do.
Doctor and the Daily Mail reporting on it today, saying sources say that the policy hawks around the U.S. president, led by political advisor Stephen Miller, have been so emboldened by the success of the operation to capture Venezuelan's leader, Nicolas Maduro, that they want to move quickly to seize the island before Russia or China makes a move.
Well, this idea.
Sources say it's going to happen. The Daily Mail. Alarmist. What would happen if the U.S. invaded Greenland? Well, let's investigate. The U.S. invasion of Greenland could plausibly escalate into a direct great power confrontation because China, Russia, and Europe would all see the core interests on the line. Europe would treat it as an attack on European territory through Denmark, triggering a NATO-level rupture and a risk of military standoffs between allied forces. Russia could respond aggressively to protect its Arctic bastion and freedom of movement in the high north, using the crisis as cover for rapid deployments. China, well, let's just see. Let's just watch this here.
Denmark, what would happen if the USA invaded Greenland right now? U.S. warships appear off the coast of Greenland. Special forces land in the dead of night, seizing airstrips and key ports. The invasion has begun. The U.S. is after Greenland's untapped resources, rare earth metals critical for military, tech, and energy dominance. With China and Russia expanding influence in the Arctic, the U.S. makes its move before they can. Denmark, which owns Greenland, is outraged and scrambles to respond. It calls on NATO for help, but the alliance is divided. Does it really want war with the U.S.? Meanwhile, Russia sees an opportunity. Moscow denounces the invasion and deploys troops to the Arctic, claiming it's protecting Arctic sovereignty. China isn't silent either. Heavily invested in Greenland's mining industry, Beijing sends warships to challenge the U.S. in the North Atlantic, warning the U.S. to withdraw. A tense standoff begins. The EU imposes sanctions, while Canada mobilizes forces and strengthens its border, fearing war on its doorstep. Then the unthinkable. Denmark fires warning shots at U.S. forces, demanding the end of the invasion. A single mistake could ignite global war. The world watches, waiting to see if diplomacy prevails or if the Arctic becomes the next battlefield. What would happen if the USA invaded Greenland right now? U.S. warships appear off the coast of Greenland.
That's a pretty wild consideration. I hope we never get to that point. Let's take a look here. Tim Ferguson writes that Trump orders the military to draft a Greenland invasion plan. According to multiple reports, he has directed U.S. Special Forces commanders to prepare contingency plans for possible invasion of Denmark, citing strategic concerns in the Arctic. That's probably why Stephen Miller was so coy with respect to that. Well, here's a quick clip from the president on Air Force One.
Take Greenland. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will take Greenland. And I am not going to let that happen.
Is there any deal they can offer you? Either like
yeah, sure. I'd love to make a deal with them. It's easier. But one way or the other, we're going to have Greenland. If we don't take Greenland, Russia or China will. And I'm not letting that happen.
Not going to let it happen. Here's more from the president on Air Force One.
Take over. Greenland should make the deal because Greenland does not want to see Russia or China take over. They don't go there. It's very far away from Greenland. And Greenland, basically, their defense is 2 dog sleds. Do you know that? You know what their defense is? 2 dog sleds. In the meantime, you have Russian destroyers and submarines and China destroyers and submarines all over the place. We're not going to let that happen. Greenland should make the deal because Greenland does not want to see Russia or China take over. They don't go there. It's very far away from Greenland.
And here is more on that. Here's President Trump. This might have been at the oil executive meeting.
thinking of getting people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. I would like to make a deal, you know, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and you know, they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but you know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult. Please, go ahead, ma'am.
On Greenland, Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to effective security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. And, you know, with a nation, look at what happened with Obama, with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't.
Boom! President Trump making it abundantly clear that it is on the table. So, you saw him say it plainly. You know what? Greenland's defense right now is essentially 2 dog sleds. Everybody knows it. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but now it's said, and the people who've been pretending Europe can defend what it cannot are exposed. This is not chaos, this is clarity, and Trump understands that unspoken power is wasted power. By speaking plainly, he forces adversaries and allies alike to take American interests seriously. That's not reckless, that is called leadership. This matters because the Arctic is the next battleground. Russia is militarizing, China is maneuvering, and Greenland sits at the center of it all. For decades, American taxpayers have funded NATO's defense while European allies issued statements and held summits. Trump is done pretending. He's demanding accountability. He's forcing the conversation about who actually carries the risk and who merely talks about it. The media wants you to be afraid of Trump's words, but words didn't make Greenland strategically vital. Geography did. Words didn't make NATO dependent on America. Decades of European underinvestment did. Trump is simply stating facts the establishment has spent years hiding. So the question is, should America continue defending allies who refuse to defend themselves? Yes or no? Sound off in the chat. And remember, the Next News merch shop has the gear for those who believe in putting America first. Link in the description. All right. Rock and roll. Another topic down. Okay, let's see what we have here going into the latest with what's going on in mini Somalia. Yeah, it's not looking good for them at all. Only getting worse and worse in Minnesota. Exploding into pure chaos. Brian, I'm not sure what you're seeing on your page over there, but the stream is down on our side. It's still running on EVMux. I understand that. I know. Yeah, there must have been some sort of a restart inside the system that then restarted the stream captures. So either we put a block inside the system so that it doesn't ever do that if it's attempting any bug fixes, but there should be a document in the folder shortly with some comprehensive solution ideas, I believe. It should be drafting now. Yeah, I think I see it here. It's the redundancy program. If you want, you can look at that now, but I haven't even reviewed it, so I don't even know what it says yet. It's in our folder where the scripts would normally be. It just drafted up a solution, but I haven't reviewed it, so I can't tell you if it's viable or not. But you can review it if you'd like. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm just letting you know it exists. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. $700 million. That's how much cash authorities have reportedly intercepted being smuggled out of this country through Minneapolis. Suitcases full of money routed directly to the Middle East. And the people who said there was no fraud, well, they're now admitting they knew all along. But here's the part that should stop you cold. Investigators say what's coming next will be 10 times worse than anything we've already seen, because the dam is breaking. You see, for years, anyone who questioned what was happening in Minnesota was called a conspiracy theorist, a racist, a liar. Now even Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey admits that the fraud is very real. Governor Tim Walz facing criminal referrals, and Ilhan Omar is under investigation for allegedly enriching herself and her husband through the very networks that are being dismantled. This is not mismanagement. This is an organized system of theft on a scale most Americans cannot even comprehend. Federal agents have surged into Minneapolis. Over 1,000 arrests already made, and activists aligned with these networks are warning that cutting off the fraudulent programs could trigger civil war. Think about that. They're not denying the fraud anymore. They're threatening violence if anyone tries to stop it. The question is no longer what happened. The question is, how deep does this go? Who protected it? And for how long? And also breaking now, the focus turns to a resource the public ignores, but defense planners track daily. Talking about titanium, as global tensions rise, this metal is becoming essential. Saga Metals is moving into position, trading as SAGMF in the United States and SAGA in Canada. You see, titanium delivers low weight, extreme strength, and corrosion resistance and is demanded by modern militaries. About 20% of total titanium demand supports defense programs, and an F-35 fighter jet can contain nearly 40% titanium by weight. Supply pressure is building across North America as Greenland emerges as a strategic titanium hub. Under President Trump's push for domestic resource independence, groundwork was laid for companies like Saga to benefit. Today, Saga Metals is drilling as titanium climbs lists. You can find out more about them and see the full briefing at the link in the description. Now, back to Minnesota, the investigation is accelerating. David Hawk, a whistleblower born and raised in Minnesota, says he's not going to sit by while his state is gutted from the inside. He's the guy that's making the difference, and he's warning that the next video release will dwarf everything that's already shocked the public. Meanwhile, President Trump is now publicly highlighting Somali welfare usage rates in Minnesota. The numbers are being described as staggering. Elon Musk saw the data and responded with one word: wow. Denaturalization and deportation are now openly discussed in circles that once called such ideas unthinkable. Here is the Treasury Secretary. Says the IRS is stepping in.
Bring in, does not want to do investigations. So we just want the facts. We want to see where they lead, and we want to put the bad guys in jail. And this is all about incentives. And one of the other problems, what I would say is the third problem here, are the incentives. You could steal hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and under the Minnesota laws, you might not even get jail time. You might get a series of paroles. So what's the incentive? Like, you just have a bad file down at the courthouse, but you got $10 million in the bank. There are plenty of people who would take that incentive all day. But I can tell you that we have the ability to bring in IRS enforcement, and they don't monkey around. So the incentive is going to be to stop this. That does not want to do it.
Check this out. We're about to release a new video investigation 10 times worse than last from Alex Jones. That's a quote. This looks like a hearing of some committee. That is David Hoke, who is revealing this reality.
Pretty shocking. So I've been researching this issue of fraud, and most specifically Somali fraud, because it is so gargantuan for the past 7 years. Many of you are familiar with the video that Nick Shirley and I made. We have a second video that's coming out Monday that is 10 times worse than the original video. It's going to be pretty shocking, and it's pretty graphic. So what I have here is a 5-year recap of all of the CCAP money, that's child care assistance payments, for the last 5 years. The top 102 recipients of that, 84 of them are Somali owned. You know how many children I've seen at those child care centers over the last 7 years? 0, not one. There's another pile of money, and it's called Great Start. And that money is given to the facility to train their staff. Well, if you don't have any kids, you don't need any staff. Then what I believe is the core of all this, is this non-emergency medical transportation. So a search showed that Minnesota recognizes 1,020 NEMT companies. Almost 900 of them are Somali owned. So in the second video, Nick Shirley and I went to 16 of them. I've actually been to about 70 of them. They don't exist. They're in an apartment building. One of them's a liquor store. Another one's a wire transfer. Another one is something totally unreal. It's a grocery store. There are no vehicles. And the average NEMT company in the United States has 20 vehicles, and each vehicle generates about $70,000 a year. So you run those numbers, 800 companies, 20 vehicles, $70,000 a year, and it's an enormous sum of money that's going out. So my feeling is that chasing the money transfers and the wires and the SARS is great, but you got to drop like Batman on Minnesota DHS, because they're the ones who are writing the checks. They're the ones allowing the fraud to happen. Look, you can blame the Somalis, but if you stick your hand out and someone puts $100 in it, yet you're going to stick your hand out again and keep the people who are putting the $100 in have got to stop doing it. They got to get out of their office and go out and look at these facilities and say, this is an apartment building. You can't have a transportation company in an apartment building. And the vast majority of these companies exist on paper only. They're not real. They have no assets, no office, and no vehicles. The other thing is that when a child care facility receives federal funds, they must abide by Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VI, which says that you cannot be exclusive to one ethnic group in your child care facility. It's discrimination. So when DHS goes out and does these inspections, they always do them announced. So they call ahead to let them know they're coming. So of course, you stockpile the kids in there and everything looks great. But do they actually count the number of kids that are there? Because some of these facilities are licensed for 120 kids, and they don't have any kids. And even if they do load kids in, they got 10 of them. But DHS doesn't go with 10 kids. Wait a minute, you're licensed for 120. What's going on here? They have no sign-in or sign-out sheet like a normal daycare is, so there's no way to track if there are any kids there, who they are, what race they are, any of that. So I'm asking for the Fed's help to come in and get to DHS and tell them get their act together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David.
Good. And David, I want to thank you for both your citizen journalism, but more for your citizen investigation in terms of what the Minnesota government was unwilling to do. And here, would you care to speculate whether it was negligence or corruption or some toxic cocktail of both?
So, Governor Walz is on record as saying that organized crime caused the fraud in Minnesota. And I said, organized crime, but like the mafia, like the Colombo, I mean, you know, what is he talking about? He never got specific, but he did admit to knowing about the fraud in 2020. He's on record as saying that. Well, Minnesota has a law, and it's statute 3.971, subdivision 9, and it says that if you are head of an agency and you are made aware of fraud or suspected fraud, you must immediately contact the Office of the Legislative Auditor and notify them of the fraud. The legislative auditor then is the body that determines what law enforcement agency to bring into the investigation. Governor Walz said he contacted the FBI. He didn't. I talked to the FBI, but it's not his prerogative to do that. It's the legislative auditor's prerogative to do that. And look, I just want to say everything I've done on my own. I don't make a penny off this. I was.
So he knew about the fraud, announced he knew about the fraud, and didn't use the proper channels to investigate the fraud, claims he called the FBI, never did. Therefore, the official body that was designed to stop the fraud was never officially notified. So Walz thinks he can just pick up the phone and call the FBI. Well, I called the FBI, but they didn't do anything. Well, that's not who you're supposed to call, Timmy. Holy cow, dude. This guy just nailed Tim Walz to the wall.
Born here, I grew up here, my whole family's here, and I'm not going to sit by while this happens and not do anything. I'm the guy who's going to make the difference. And I'm telling you, when this next video comes out, it's going to be World War III.
Well, I find myself in the unusual position of agreeing with Governor Walz that it was undoubtedly organized crime. And what we were seeing, and this is what Treasury does, we have successfully tracked and prosecuted the mafia. We have successfully tracked and prosecuted the Mexican cartels. And this is organized crime within the Somali community. So he is right. This is an organized criminal enterprise, and we will get to the bottom of it. And thank you for your help.
And so all of this fraud that you're now seeing being uncovered around the country after our video came out, everyone's going to these child care facilities, these delicate, there's nobody there. They're getting hundreds of millions of dollars. They go, where are the people? They're on a field trip. They're not there. So the fraud, I believe, is being developed here. The programs are being developed here, and then they're fanning out across the country. But this is their ground zero right here. This is their base, Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Ilhan Omar, she's freaking out. She's knee-deep in the fraud, says Juanita Broderick. That's why she doesn't want the investigation. And where does she go? She goes to the newly rebranded MSNBC, which is now MS Now. Another bait and switch by the media to make you think they're some kind of new organization.
I'm so exhausted in trying to ask what any of this, information has led to you finding any criminals that you have indicted that explains why you are wasting so much of our taxpayer resources and also terrorizing our communities in the amount of federal law enforcement agents that you have in the streets of our city and our state. There needs to be some sort of justification.
She says that we're wasting taxpayer dollars on sending people to investigate, but failing to even mention the amount of taxpayer dollars that were outright stolen, which is what triggered the investigations to begin with. Dude, this woman, unbelievable. Oh, she's panicking. Here's more. Ilhan Omar shows her support for groups that fight ICE in the streets throughout Minneapolis. Laura Ingram writes, we have a sitting congresswoman born in Somalia now leading her own semi-insurrection against the enforcement of federal law in her state. Lives not saved, but in jeopardy because of her.
Sure that they... Hey everyone, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar here in Cedar, Riverside, Minneapolis with the Cedar Riverside Protection Alliance. I am so grateful for the fact that they are out here doing the important work. One, of informing the community of what is happening with these ICE raids, making sure that they are challenging ICE agents to have judicial warrants, and making sure that our communities have the resources that they need. Thank you, everyone. We are only protected if we protect one another. So thank you.
Yeah, and you got to keep protecting the fraud. That's what you are doing, Ilhan. Oh, don't worry. They'll have the right warrants. Don't worry. Authorities in Minnesota reportedly intercepted $700 million in cash being smuggled out of the country by Somali couriers, far above the $10,000 legal limit. More credit to Nick Shirley and David Wheaton for digging. Oh, my goodness.
As the FBI, we're going to turn our attention back to the Somali fraud investigation. As we've discussed before, authorities have discovered suitcases containing hundreds of millions of dollars in a Minnesota airport. Now, in the meantime, Republicans are working to cut funding for Somali-led organizations with alleged ties to the massive fraud scandal. Now, as the FBI pushes forward with its own investigation, one key question arises. What does accountability even look like in this case moving forward? So joining us now to talk about all of this and more is New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Hey, great to be on with you, too. What a crazy time we're seeing here, aren't we?
Absolutely insanity. And I know oversight in the House is looking into these fraud allegations, but I wonder if it's even bigger than we have uncovered thus far. The $700 million in cash going out of the airports there. I have a feeling we are still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, it looks really bad, and obviously very alarming to see that this U.S. cash has been legally going through our airports. And of course, there is a requirement of reporting if you're going to carry more than $10,000. There's a reporting requirement, but I think a really interesting part about this is if, isn't it going to be a little suspicious when you start seeing 10,000, 100,000, millions, and now, more, as John reported earlier, more money that goes through JFK, goes through the Minneapolis airport. Something's wrong there. And I think something that's very interesting that we impose on banks is that banks are required under banking law to require and file and keep track of what they call suspicious activity reports. This is something I think we need to do now when we see the large amounts of U.S. cash, and it's always U.S. cash. I mean, you're not going to see, Chinese yen or anything else going through there. And U.S. cash is king, and we need to certainly have this type of cash exchange reported. It's interesting because you see all this illegal immigration we've had over this time. And by the way, most of those Somalis that are in Minnesota probably came through a refugee program, and probably many of them are already legal American citizens. So suspicious activity reports, some kind of accounting for cash, I think would really be helpful. I'm looking at ways that we might be able to do this so that we could actually look at what's going on. Banks are required to do that. Individuals are not. But I'll tell you, if I'm a TSA agent or anyone else and I see this kind of cash going through, and that you're able to report the amount of cash going through, that it's happening in plain sight. We're seeing corruption in plain sight. Most of the remittances that go back often go to these foreign countries, and there's substantial portions of their economy, whether it's Guatemala and Mexico and other countries. Their own workers are sending that money back. But this is at a level that is just unprecedented. And I really think we need to look into a way to track that and to actually show that we can hold them accountable, and that type of suspicious activity leads to fraud, arrest, and what we're seeing unfold every day in Minnesota, which seems to get worse by the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to ask about the two most common way illegal aliens, also legal aliens, by the way, legal residents of the United States, but move money out of the country, remittance payment centers, and of course these cash couriers like the ones that were working out of the Minneapolis airport. Is there any thought in Congress to requiring that a remittance payment business or a cash courier ascertain and make sure that before they move money, the person that they're moving money from out of the United States is a lawful resident or citizen?
Yeah, I think that should be a requirement. And also they should have some kind of certification that you are a person that we can trust. Our intelligence forces have already vetted that you can be carrying these huge amounts of cash back and forth to other countries. And I don't think those types of laws are in place. And I think that's a really good way to start having accountability and also tracking where this cash leaving the United States is going. And look what it would have led to had we paid attention to this over the last 10 years, and what you reported earlier on $700 million. I mean, that's almost $1 billion going, I think it was 700 million going, through an airport in Minneapolis, not JFK. Amazing, right?
Yeah.
Follow the money. Man warns potential freeze of food stamps in Minnesota could spark a civil war. At this point, you could call a civil war. The sanctioning of an enemy state is essentially a declaration of war at this point, cutting off food to the people.
Of an enemy state. Well, reports are coming out now that the Trump administration is now freezing food stamps to the state of Minnesota, almost as if they are sanctioning an enemy state. At this point, could you call this civil war? It might not necessarily be kinetic, but the sanctioning of an enemy state, is that not essentially a declaration of war at this point? Cutting off food to the people. Well, reports are coming out now.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Jacob Frey, after months of Democrats claiming there is no fraud, the fraud is very real now, he says.
Taxpayer. Let me ask you about the leadership in your state. Dozens of people in Minnesota have been charged and convicted with stealing millions of dollars of taxpayer money for government programs. Do you think Governor Walz did enough to stop the fraud in your state? And do you support his decision not to run for re-election?
Well, look, Governor Walz is the reason that we've got paid family leave in Minnesota. He's the reason we've got free school lunches. Him and I, we've been through thick and thin.
But did he do enough to combat fraud,
over these
Mayor?
past 5
Did he do
years?
enough to combat fraud?
Look, obviously everybody could have done more to prevent fraud, and I think that's a fair point to make. Do more to prevent fraud, and you look what he's doing right now. He's setting up a whole bunch of infrastructure to do that. And by the way, look, the fraud's real. We've all got to acknowledge it. The fraud is very real. And by the way, when somebody commits fraud, and there are many that have done that, you investigate it, you charge, you prosecute, and you put the person in jail. As an individual, you put the person in jail as an individual. You do not hold an entire community, any community, accountable for the actions of individuals.
Yeah, but in this case, you've got like 90% of these crimes are committed by Somalis. So, no, it's not racism, dude. Ilhan Omar says, ignore the Somali fraud taking place. Trump is trying to create fear. Yeah, right. Whatever.
Justice Department. Treasury Secretary Bessent called Minnesota ground zero for what may be the most egregious welfare scam in our nation's history to date. 85 of the 98 people who were charged by the Justice Department with this welfare scheme are Somali. And you know this. The Treasury Secretary is probing.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
98 people who were charged by the Justice Department with this welfare scheme are Somali. And you know this. The Treasury Secretary is probing whether any of the money was somehow funneled outside the country. He actually issued new standards. He's going to make it make someone disclose if they receive public assistance when they try to wire money out of the country, and he's lowered the bar for suspicious activity. What is the practical impact of doing that in the community?
It's just creating fear. What they are doing is creating confusion, chaos, trying to intimidate people from being able to exercise their regular, normal activities that they would. There is no justification.
Here she said.
To intimidate people from being able to exercise their regular, normal activities that they
intimidate people from doing their regular, normal activities. Okay, so if the normal activities are committing fraud and you're intimidating people to stop that fraud, that's the whole point, Ilhan. The whole point is to strike fear into the criminals so they don't commit the fraud. Wow.
They would. There is no justification in any of the things that they say. The 87 people that you've described as being investigated, many of them adjudicated, all happened under the Biden administration. There is no justification for this search. We know that ICE has the ability to conduct raid.
No justification? Really? Tell that to Nick Shirley.
There is no reason to have over 2,000 people coming in to our city and creating the level of terror that they have created.
Well, the administration argues that they have to do it because the state failed to, right?
The federal government and the state have been working peacefully together and have brought justice to these 87 people that you've described. None of this search that they have conducted has produced any sort of criminal activity. They haven't been able to charge anyone as of yet.
Treasury Secretary
as of yet. As of yet. There's the key word right there. As of yet. Because it's only getting started. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is set to resign within the next week, according to multiple reports from within the Walz campaign. This is 48 hours ago. This comes after he was referred for a criminal indictment over massive Somali fraud within the state. Carter Hughes reporting that. Set to resign within the next week. Scott Bessent erupts on Tim Walz for pulling Bessent's security at the Minnesota Capitol.
Why that didn't come. But one curious detail, this interview was originally scheduled for the Minnesota State Capitol. Can you explain why that didn't come to pass and why we're here?
For one reason, Chris, Tim Walz is a coward. He is a coward. He would not guarantee that the Treasury Secretary of the United States of America would have police protection in the Minnesota State Capitol. He is afraid of what is coming. And he's not going to be able to hide behind this curtain because we will get there. And I don't have to go in the Capitol building to investigate him. I would love for him to come to Treasury and answer some questions. I can guarantee you that he will be safe and sound then, depending on what we discover. I don't know about his future. And as I said earlier, that will be the only view of the Oval Office he ever gets. Because let's just think about the long arc of history. The suppression of this story is this guy got to could have been one heartbeat away from being president of the United States. And when we don't have a functioning mainstream media and great independent journalists like you, citizen journalists who go out and do the investigative work because the people who are supposed to be doing it don't do it anymore.
But
so bottom line there, he wouldn't ensure his safety. He wouldn't ensure his safety. He wouldn't provide him any security at the Capitol. So they had to move the interview. But that's not going to stop what's coming. He just didn't want to have the Treasury Secretary there. Just trying to put up another roadblock. Excuse me. Juanita Broderick writes, Ilhan Omar attempted to launder $1 million through a Somali drug abuse clinic that was actually a restaurant. This clip's from Fox Business. Joni Ernst, Senate Armed Services Committee on Fox Business.
Congress covered the other day, and one of our spending bills making its way through Congress was a $1 million earmark from Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, which was an earmark that was supposedly going to a substance abuse clinic, which actually happened to be housed in a restaurant and run by 3 individuals that share the same residential address, according to their IRS paperwork. Tons of red flags. So this is what we saw with the fraud involving the daycare centers. Now we see other earmarks coming directly from members of Congress where it seems fraud is being perpetrated as well. So I raised the issue, and fortunately, the House has now stripped that earmark out of that spending bill. But again, this is how easy money has been flowing to bad actors in Minnesota. Covered the other
bad actors in Minnesota. We got more, a little bit more to cover here. Let's see. Why hasn't Speaker Johnson and his Republican House caucus not started expulsion hearings against Ilhan Omar, where there's mountains of corruption against her, when they wasted no time expelling House Republican George Santos before he even went to trial? Good question. Maybe that's coming. Ilhan Omar is, in fact, being investigated. We're finding out now. We have Representative James Comer. This report from Lindell TV. She's at the top of the suspect list.
There are reports that members of Congress are actually receiving daycare and healthcare clinic money funneled through various PACs. If this is true and widespread, how can the American people trust Congress to task and uncover the far-reaching tentacles of this fraud?
Any member of Congress that's getting any money unethically or illegally, there's an ethics committee, and it's a bipartisan. It's an equal number of Republicans and Democrats, and that's the committee that's supposed to investigate members of Congress. The ethics committee was created. We have in our rules that we're not supposed to investigate other members, but the ethics committee has a staff, and that is their sole purpose for existence in life. And I think the House Ethics Committee traditionally has been a lot harder on unethical behavior than the Senate Ethics Committee. That's my opinion. But anybody that has information on a member of Congress, bring that to the Ethics Committee and they'll investigate it. And I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. We need to hold them accountable.
What about Ilhan Omar?
Well, I mean, she's at the top of the suspect list in that, so we'll see.
Thank you.
But I can tell you, my members, there are going to be ethics complaints filed against Omar. She had an opportunity to come in here today.
Yeah, she was actually right across the hall at the Black Caucus lunch.
If there was anything about Kentucky, I would have been there, and I think that's the way it is with most members, especially the Somali. This is a hearing about Somali fraud. There have been countless reports that her husband has profited in some way, and she in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if that's true or not, but she could have had an opportunity to come in here and defend herself. So hopefully you all may knock on her door and ask her some questions, and we'll see what she has to say.
There are reports that members of Congress are actually receiving a day.
Oh, the walls are closing in, and she's hiding. The other day, she said, inciting violence and death threats against ICE. We will make sure those people pay for what they've done to us. Yeah, we're going to make you pay for what you've done to us. Here's more from Ilhan.
It is really, and when people are disappeared in the darkness, American democracy dies.
Congresswoman,
and it is really important for every single person in this country to understand that they are not only disappearing people who have committed crimes who are in this country undocumented. They are disappearing U.S. citizens. They are disappearing people who have proper documentation, sometimes telling them that their documentations are wrong, keeping them for days upon days. We've also seen people be deported who have proper documentation yet to be returned to this country.
Okay, yeah, enough of your emotional theatrics, Ilhan. We know what you're trying to do. Deflect from the investigation that is upon you. Elon Musk, wow! Trump is posting Somali welfare usage rates in Minnesota, staggering numbers. This is what President Trump has posted. Welfare use rates in Minnesota by households with children. And you can see the Somali immigrant households with children. You could see, wow, the two big black lines, the black and the gray line. Any welfare, 89 to 86%. Cash, straight up cash. Look at this. 6% other, 21% Somali. Food stamps, 62% and 54%. CIS, 86 and 83% on Medicaid. You see, here's what they fear the most. Once the full picture is visible, the money trails, the networks, the political protection, the question won't be what happened. The question will be who covered it up. Laura Ingraham putting it bluntly, we have a sitting congresswoman born in Somalia now leading her own semi-insurrection against federal law. Lives are in jeopardy because of her, and still Speaker Johnson has not started expulsion hearings despite mountains of evidence. George Santos was expelled before trial. Ilhan Omar remains in Congress while under investigation. So this matters because Minnesota is a preview of what happens when leaders choose ideology over law. For years, the fraud was called a myth. Now it's confirmed. For years, critics were silenced as bigots, and now they're vindicated. $700 million smuggled out, billions stolen through fake programs, a governor facing criminal referrals, a congresswoman under investigation, an activist threatening civil war if anyone tries to restore order. This is not about one state. This is about whether America enforces its own laws or surrenders to those who exploit them. The federal government is no longer pretending this can be managed quietly. Arrests are accelerating, investigations are expanding, and the next revelations are coming fast. So should Ilhan Omar be expelled from Congress and face deportation? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat and show the world you stand for accountability. Hit the Next News merch shop, link in the description. All right. I'm not sure if we're getting any super chats this morning. We did have a couple from Rumble. Rumble squeeze. I want to go to the new state of Greenland. Maybe go fishing, build a snowman. And then we got Salty Nationals. Abolish the Federal Reserve and make America great again. I'll check on the main page, Brian. Thank you for the reminder. Let's refresh that real quick. $4 in super chats. All right. Thank you, guys. For some reason, the system is not showing our YouTube comments today. So regardless, thank you all for being here and watching the show. And checking in on our live stream page. Let me just make a quick note. Okay, it's not working correctly, but okay. Let's go to our next topic, Brian. Federal agents are being hunted in the streets of Minneapolis. A woman used her car as a weapon against ICE officers. Agitators are calling for armed resistance, and the politician who created the chaos, they're blaming the officers. Well, the body cam footage we've shown you is out, and the truth is undeniable. But what's happening next will determine whether law enforcement can even operate in American cities, and it's actually worse than you think. This is not a protest. This is not civil disobedience. Federal officials are now calling what's happening in Minneapolis domestic terrorism. And Tom Homan said it plainly, the media is normalizing interference. With ICE, it's a crime to impede federal officers, but elected officials are doing exactly that. The members of Congress are openly calling to abolish ICE while agents arrest hundreds of thousands of criminals every year. Violent offenders, gang members, repeat felons. The left would rather have these individuals roaming American streets than see federal law enforced. Secretary Kristi Noem placed the blame squarely on sanctuary politicians like Tim Walz and Jacob Frey. She said they spent years demonizing officers and creating the conditions for this violence. Resources were surged to Minnesota because corrupt local leadership allowed fraud and crime to spread unchecked. Now officers are paying the price. And breaking right now, let me ask you something. If the power went out tonight, if stores were empty tomorrow, would you be ready? Most people aren't. That's why I recommend My Patriot Supply right now. They have a special deal on their 3-month emergency food kit. You'll save $100, but only while supplies last. The kit gives you over 2,000 calories a day for 90 days, real meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, and snacks, packed in sturdy buckets. Lasts up to 25 years, made in the USA. No MSG, no junk, fast free shipping, 30-day return policy, and a disaster replacement guarantee. When disaster strikes, your family will be eating 3 meals a day. You'll be the hero who made it happen. Go to preparewithgary.com right now. That's preparewithgary.com. And the violence is escalating. Body cam footage obtained by Alpha News shows that the deadly confrontation, a woman's partner can be heard yelling, "Drive, baby, drive," as the vehicle moves towards officers. The agent feared for his life and responded. Legal authorities say it meets federal and state self-defense standards, but Ilhan Omar blamed the officer, falsely claiming the woman was peacefully sitting in her car. Of course, the video proves otherwise. Meanwhile, agitators are openly threatening ICE agents online. One man caught on camera telling officers that people need to show up with guns to finish you guys. He called for armed resistance. Reporters who documented the chaos had their vehicles surrounded and windows smashed. Here is the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, on the weekend violence.
We spoke about this last night and how Secretary Noem is doing a phenomenal job, not just securing the border, which she and the president did together in record time, but also in defense of the brave men and women of ICE who put on a law enforcement uniform every single day to protect our communities and to protect all of you and every American, regardless if they are Democrat or Republican. ICE is doing a very important job to remove illegal alien criminals from our communities. And I think it's very striking that all weekend long, you had agitators and violent American citizens out in the streets of Minneapolis protesting. Protesting what exactly? Apparently, they are protesting the removal of heinous murderers and rapists and criminals from a city that I can guarantee you, when you look at the list of the illegal criminals that ICE is removing from our communities every day, not a single person in those protests and not a single person standing here that works in the mainstream media in Washington, D.C. would want those individuals in your neighborhood, in your community, around your children and around your families. ICE is doing an incredibly important job that's not just important to our homeland security, but our national security. And this administration will continue to stand wholeheartedly by the brave men and women of ICE, including that officer in Minneapolis who was absolutely justified in using self-defense against a lunatic who was part of a group, an organized group, to interject and to impede on law enforcement operations. And it's disgusting what we have seen from the left. And I think that it just shows you where the modern day Democrat Party stands today in protecting illegal alien pedophiles and rapists and murderers over law-abiding American citizens and our brave men and women who serve in law enforcement. President Trump.
Caroline Leavitt on point. Here she is, more confirming there is a network of paid agitators and organizers who stalk, harass, and impede and ambush ICE Border Patrol agents.
Unlawful instances play out in American communities across the country where you have these organized paid antagonists who are part of these groups that are actively unlawfully impeding lawful law enforcement operations. They are harassing and targeting ICE agents, trying to make it impossible, again, for them to carry out their duties. That's what was happening in this case. That officer used his training. I understand that he's been on the force and he's been protecting American communities for many, many years. He's an experienced and brave individual who unfortunately had to make a very tough decision and was put in that position by these paid agitators who have been doing this all over the country.
Caroline,
play out.
Oh, we've been tracking paid agitators for a long time. Here's the president on Air Force One talking about the heroes.
Bans out plenty, generally speaking. I mean, these people have been harassed and threatened every day. They had bans out plenty so they couldn't sleep at the hotel. I see what they're doing to them. They're threatening him constantly. And all they're doing is doing what I got elected on. We had millions of people that came into our country that are horrible people that shouldn't be in our country. They're murderers, they're drug dealers, they're people from mental institutions, they're the criminally insane, they're people from prisons. They were allowed to come into our country because Biden was a stupid person, and the people surrounding him, very smart, very vicious, but they have no common sense, and they're radicalized people. They're radical left people, not radical right. They're radical left people. And all they're doing is what I campaigned on. I won in a landslide. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote. We won the districts. We won everything. We won the counties. We won the counties by 79%, I believe. I campaigned on a great border, and now we have a great border. But Biden let 25 million people come into this country, and many of those people are criminals, including 11,888 murderers. And we want them out. And I won on that. Now people don't talk about it because the border is so secure, nobody wants to talk about it anymore. The border was one of the reasons I won the election. I've done such a good job on it that nobody wants to talk about it anymore. The border is totally secure. And now the crime stats just came out, and they're the best numbers since they were taken, and that's like 50 years ago. We have the best crime numbers, despite the fact that a lot of criminals were allowed into our country. Do you think that we have to respect our law enforcement?
Dude, this guy is just on fire, man. That's what a president should, that's how a president should act. And President Trump is executing his executive authority every single day. It's so exciting to watch. Here's Secretary Newsom talking about the sanctuary cities.
And sodomized. We would love that. These sanctuary cities, such as Minneapolis, are extremely dangerous for American citizens. And Jake, since we've been there, we've arrested dozens and dozens of murderers and rapists, individuals who have assaulted children and sodomized them. We just released a whole list of individuals just in Minnesota that we've arrested since we've surged personnel there, and it's incredible. So we would love it if the Minneapolis police force and the governor and the state police department would partner with us to help us do this work. We would love that. These
Who
sanctuaries.
the hell does that? She said that on CNN State of the Union. What disturbed and demonic individual can do that to? Oh, I can't even think about this. Sick. Anyway, here's Tom Homan. Sorry, that last clip got me a little rattled. Says the media is normalizing interference with ICE.
Guys, we've already arrested. They want to, they normalize. The media is normalizing interference with ICE. It is a crime to impede ICE officers. Bill Mnuchin just put out a list of 18 of the worst of the worst in Minneapolis. Many of them child sex crimes, child rape, child sodomy. These are the people we're looking for. For anybody to interfere in that is unconscionable. We need to enforce the law and arrest these bad guys. We've already arrested over 1,000 people in that state, and we're going to continue to do exactly what Congress has allowed us to do and what the law allows us to do.
Just disgusting. What the hell? Here's Presley, Representative Presley. I will continue to call on Congress in this moment to use appropriations and the power of the purse to rein in ICE. I believe it should be abolished. Yeah, because they're uncovering all your criminals.
And what they want is for us to go quietly into the night, to believe that their dark, violent, dystopian view of this country is an inevitability. And I'm so grateful for everyday citizens that continue to join with Democrats in vigorous condemnation of these actions. And I will continue to demand an independent and thorough investigation, continue to call on Congress in this moment to use appropriations and the power of the purse to rein in ICE. Again, I believe it should be abolished. What they want is for us to go quietly into the night.
Good luck with that. Here is Lyons talking about the gang ties.
Even have to call in Portland, where the police chief was crying while admitting that 2 illegal immigrants who were shot by ICE this week have ties to Tren de Aragua, TDA.
It saddens me that we
even have to qualify these remarks because I understand, or at least have attempted to understand through your voices, your concern, your fear, your anger.
Director Lyons, what's he crying about?
You know, Peter, I have no idea what he's crying about. You know, Border Patrol agents were conducting a targeted enforcement operation on suspected TDA gang members in a human trafficking prostitute staying in his city. So I would think he would be happy that we take these criminal elements out of his neighborhoods. But I'm not sure what he's crying about. He went on to say that he didn't want to victim blame. There were criminals in this situation, not victims. And if you use a 3,000 to 4,000 pound vehicle to attempt to ram a law enforcement officer, whether it's one of his officers, state police, or a Border Patrol agent, there's going to be consequences. And we're happy that we're taking 2 TDA gang members, which TDA is a known suspected terrorist organization now, out of the community.
In Portland, where the police chief was crying while admitting that 2 illegal immigrants who were shot by ICE this week have ties to Tren de Aragua, TDA.
Crimea River, right? They're crying over the fact that the law is being enforced. Yeah, it's a tragedy when anyone dies. But these guys are enforcing the law, and the police chief there is crying. Newly released body cam footage shows the chaotic moments of the ICE operation in Minneapolis, where a woman was fatally shot. DHS claims she tried to run over officers. Video shows vehicle moving slowly amid the protests. Watch and judge. This is a newly released body cam footage, apparently.
Get the fuck out of our neighborhood!
Clearly blocking.
What the fuck? Dude, what the fuck? Dude, you did a murder for what? Get the fuck out of our neighborhood.
You see how she, dude, at this point right here, watch. Okay, so she's in reverse right there. She's in reverse, and then you could watch as she hesitates when she moves forward because she knows the Border Patrol or the ICE agent is in front of the car. Watch carefully. Oh, stop, and then turn. Yep. How stupid, man. How stupid. Philadelphia Sheriff Rochelle Beale should resign. Arresting ICE officers. Good luck with that. Why does an ICE agent have a gun? That's what they're asking on MSNBC. New levels of stupidity, insane. Secretary Newsom calling it a domestic terror act because Walls and Frey are demonizing officers. Here's Omar. Here's Omar's response to that shooting. She's sitting in her car peacefully waving for cars to get by. Unbelievable.
Blocking the road. They are claiming this is an act of terrorism.
Yeah, Renee Nicole Good, as you hear her say, she's not mad. She's sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to get by. This agent, as you see, gets out of his car.
She was not peacefully waving anything. We saw the footage. She was mocking the officers, her partner mocking the officers. There was nothing peaceful about any of that. The smug look on her face before she was extinguished. Nice try, Ilhan.
Was blocking the road. They are claiming this is an act of terrorism.
Yeah, Renee Nicole Good, as you hear her say, she's not mad. She's sitting in her car, peacefully waving cars to get by. This agent, as you see, gets out of his car, automatically starts running towards her, trying to open her door. She feels scared. She tries to turn the wheel away. And then you see the other officer, who can clearly see the car is moving, move towards the front of the car, which, if they are saying that he has 10 years on service and is trained, he should know that you shouldn't be trying to get in front of a moving car. And so it is not acceptable for Kristi Noem and the president and the vice president to make these kind of judgments without there being a full investigation, even though we can see in the videos that have been produced so far that what they are describing is really not what is taking place. And so if they're saying that we shouldn't believe our eyes, then...
No, we believe our eyes. We know exactly what they say. Don't try to spin it. No level of spin or redirection will permit that. Wow.
Highly disrespectful.
So here's the contrast. It tells you everything. In Texas, police charged into a crowd of anti-ICE agitators, brought them to the ground, and made swift arrests. Governor Abbott's message was clear. Texas is not Minnesota. That's how law enforcement is supposed to work. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia sheriff threatened to arrest ICE officers. ICE responding, try and see what happens. The federal government is done backing down. President Trump has vowed to identify who's funding the coordinated chaos. The arrests are coming. No amount of media spin can put this back into the bottle. This matters because the rule of law is being tested in real time. Federal officers are being attacked for enforcing laws passed by Congress. Politicians are encouraging mobs instead of order. Reporters are assaulted while agitators walk free. This is what happens when leaders demonize law enforcement for political gain. Secretary Noem calling it domestic terrorism, and she's right. The body cam footage is clear. The threats are documented. The coordination is obvious, and now the federal government is responding with force. Thousands of federal agents deployed, arrests accelerating nationwide. The question being answered right now is simple. Does America enforce its laws, or does it surrender to those who would tear them down? Should politicians who incite violence against federal officers face criminal charges, yes or no? Tell me in the chat. Gear up at the Next News merch shop, link in the description, and stand with law enforcement. All right, we're moving right along with our topic of the day. Oh, yes, it is spreading, and so are the investigations. We got lots that we're going to uncover in this next segment, so don't go anywhere. Thank you for sticking around today. And have you checked out our new page that we have set up for this feed? Just working out some of the bugs on it. And we have a new SMS system that we'll be implementing as well. So if you go to that page, you can actually put in your phone number and get on our text message list. It's more effective than email, I find, as well as it's totally compliant as well with all the regulations. There are quite a lot of them I've come to learn. So you can sign up there, and once we have the whole system online, 100%, then when we go live, you'll get a text message as well. So you don't have to rely on Twitter. You don't have to rely on perhaps a Discord message. We've implemented new features that when we do go live, that a notification goes to Twitter as well as the private members-only Discord. If you're a member of the members-only Discord, which you do have to be a member of the channel for, you'll have more exclusive updates throughout the day as we move through the production flow, so you can keep track of the topics that we're going to be covering. As well as, for example, like once we've selected our top 5 stories of the day, you'll get a notification in Discord for that. When our script is ready, you'll get a notification for that. When we're about ready to go live, you'll get a notification for that. And then when we go live as well. So you'll be able to kind of track our progress throughout the day, which is really a new feature to allow you to have a little bit more insight into our production flow and the timelines of how things are executed. So I've been working on this system for a couple of months now, very long nights, a lot of coding and a lot of, architecture with respect to how different systems connect to each other. But we are now at a point where we're probably about 75-85% there. Today we had some hiccups that happened right at the beginning of the show. You guys probably didn't see it, but those things, I think we've got those bugs squashed. And now we have to work out some redundancy issues with respect to how the stream is distributed through some of our systems that we rely on. So I'm working with Brian in the background to figure out maybe some redundancy or some relay systems that will ensure that we always have a good, clean stream capture. So exciting stuff working in the background here at the Next News Network. And if you saw some of the architecture that I've created, it would blow your freaking mind. But at the end of the day, it's going to create more efficiency. It's going to streamline the operations so that we can go live even sooner than we normally do, and keep you informed at every step of the way. So a lot of really big changes happening here with respect to how our production is processed through the entire flow of this production. And that's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but never really had the resources or the tools to do it. Now the tools exist, so I'm using them to my advantage, which becomes your advantage. All right, let's get into our next topic, Brian. You were told Minnesota was an isolated incident, a regional problem, a one-time scandal. Well, that, of course, was a lie. The same investigators who exposed the fraud in Minnesota are now turning their attention west, and what they're finding in California makes Minnesota look like a rehearsal. Billions gone, ghost operations, political protection at the highest levels. Gavin Newsom is in panic mode. He watched what happened to Tim Walz. He knows he's next, and the evidence is about to go public. Now, the numbers coming out of California are almost impossible to believe. $32 billion in unemployment fraud ignored despite repeated warnings. Now, that's 32 billion. What we were looking at in Minnesota was 19. Okay, and that's just one section of the fraud. Now, those unemployment fraud dollars ignored despite repeated warnings. State auditors flagging it years ago, nothing was done. Now, that alone is being called the biggest fraud scandal in U.S. history. Worse than Minnesota. And they called that the worst in U.S. history. But it gets worse. An estimated $76 billion in alleged fraudulent spending across state programs. Gavin Newsom spent $24 billion supposedly solving homelessness. That's roughly $170,000 per homeless person. Enough to buy each of them a house. They said the streets of Los Angeles look like a third world country. Drug addiction, encampments, garbage everywhere. Where did the money go? Local officials are now revealing that California's homeless task force, the body deciding who gets funding, is stacked with NGO leaders who directly benefit from the cash. The same people handing out our money are the ones receiving it. And breaking right now, let me ask you something. If the power went out tonight, if stores were empty tomorrow, would you be ready? Most people aren't. That's why I recommend My Patriot Supply. Right now, they have a special deal on the 3-month emergency food kit. You'll save $100. But only while supplies last. The kit gives you over 2,000 calories a day for 90 days, real meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, and snacks packed in sturdy buckets. Lasts up to 25 years. Made in the USA, no MSG, no junk, fast free shipping, 30-day return policy, and a disaster replacement guarantee. When disaster strikes, your family will be eating 3 meals a day, and you'll be the hero who made it happen. Go to preparewithgary.com right now. That's preparewithgary.com. Now it gets darker. The investigators have uncovered ghost daycares in California, much like what we saw in Minnesota. They were licensed on paper, but non-existent in reality. That's even scarier. Nick Shirley showed us the ones that actually had brick and mortar operations, couldn't spell their signs right. But now we're learning that these in California don't even exist, but they're just on paper. They use to siphon public funds. Now, check out this meme here. I think it tells you everything you need to know. You see, they were used to siphon public funds, and according to licensed private investigators, records related to these schemes are being hidden at the highest levels of state government. And that there's the high-speed rail disaster. Newsom promised a bullet train from San Francisco to L.A., 220 miles an hour, 3 hours end to end. 17 years later, taxpayers had little more than paperwork and a request for $100 billion more. That deadline passed years ago. Tracks aren't even fully down. The money vanished. Benny Johnson says that what they've uncovered will outrage every taxpayer in America. Newsom watched what happened to Tim Walz, and now he knows he's next. Fraud is the career killer. So let's get into this right now. Here is former California State Representative Bill Assail calls it sedition. He's a current U.S. State's Attorney for Central District of California, confirms beyond a shadow of doubt Gavin Newsom let illegal aliens register to vote through the California website of the DMV. Unreal. That's another scandal. Representative Florida Rep Maria Elvira Salazar exposes California Rep Maxine Waters taking multiple trips to Cuba to visit Fidel Castro. These people are communists. Here is what Benny Johnson posted 24 hours ago. This is what Democrat leadership has done in L.A. Drug addicts, homeless, garbage everywhere. Looks like a third world country. Hundreds of millions towards homeless. And this is the outcome. So where did the money go?
Right off. We're going to pop up right here. Excuse me. Thank you very much. So I can give you guys a little bit more accurate feeling of what it feels like to ride through here. Got my light off and we're creeping. Here's how we're looking. Wow. Get off this sidewalk. Here we are. Let me show you guys what this is like after dark. It's a whole new scene. It's a lot different than it is during the day, to say the least. Squeeze my way through. But you know, as long as you mind your business, you don't really have much of a problem. Just want to keep on rolling. It's actually not too bad right now. A lot of people waiting for a transit bus. This is, yeah. Look at this, bro. What's going on back here? I don't even want to get too involved. It's crazy again. Oh my God. Damn, bro. Oh.
One after another, homeless encampment, and all the money disappeared. It's been 5 years since the state auditor found California allowed $32 billion in unemployment fraud after ignoring repeated warnings. Yet the auditor just found that billions in EDD fraud continues. This is the biggest fraud scandal in U.S. history, says Representative Kevin Kiley.
Amounting to a minimum. Mr. Speaker, I want to take a moment this morning to examine the biggest fraud scandal in the history of California and probably in the history of the United States. And that was the fraud in unemployment benefits that occurred in California during the COVID years, amounting to a minimum of $32 billion. $32 billion. Now, it's easy to kind of throw these numbers around and lose sight of what they really mean. So just to put that in perspective, that was half of the education budget in California at the time. It's more than the entire state budget of the vast majority of states in the country. Now, the reason that this scandal bears scrutiny right now is threefold. First, a state audit just found 2 weeks ago that this unemployment fraud in California is ongoing to this day, continuing to cost taxpayers billions of dollars. Second, the Senate still has not passed a bill that we passed in the House to hold some of these fraudsters accountable by extending the statute of limitations. And third, the Newsom administration, perhaps sensing the political peril following the events in Minnesota, has come out and absurdly tried to deny responsibility for this scheme, for this scandal, and even more absurdly tried to blame the federal government for it. So I want to go through exactly what happened, because I believe it is important to show why taxpayers were so thoroughly defrauded and to assure that this does not continue to happen going forward. The reality is that the fraud that occurred in California took place despite the repeated warnings of the federal government. And it was uncovered not by state officials, but rather by local prosecutors. On November 23rd of 2020, county prosecutors, a group of 9 of them, disclosed what they called the most serious fraud, significant fraud of taxpayer funds in California history. Now, at the time, they said they could only prove $1 billion. So $1 billion was already the biggest fraud of taxpayer dollars in California history. Now we know that it was at the very least $32 billion. Contrary to what the Newsom administration is trying to say now, at the time, the district attorney of Sacramento County, Anne Marie Schubert, said, quote, "We have asked and implored the governor to turn the spigot off." She said the governor's unemployment development office was not doing common sense things like cross-checking claims with prison rolls, something that the vast majority of other states were doing and that the federal government had advised. She said this made the scheme, quote, "relatively easy." She called the governor's response slow and non-existent. She advised Governor Newsom to, quote, "look to other states for solutions." The district attorney of Fresno County, Lisa Smitkamp, said that Newsom, quote, "did nothing until the elected district attorneys brought it to the media," adding that she did not think the state has a handle on it. Those were comments made back in November of 2020. The following January, the state auditor came out with a report that laid forward in very precise detail exactly how significant the failures of the Newsom administration were, specifically with their unemployment office known as the EDD. A heading in that audit said, quote, "significant weaknesses in EDD's approach to fraud prevention have led to billions of dollars in improper benefit payment." Among the key...
Yeah, that's just getting started, folks. You think Tim Walz is bad? Just wait until you see what Gavin Newsom's done. $76.5 billion in alleged fraudulent spending. A record of failures and deception brought to you by Gavin Newsom.
During the COVID pandemic, Minnesota is bad. Wait till you find out what Gavin Newsom has been doing in the state of California, because a new report has come out that estimates that there's about $76 billion in fraud coming from California. During the COVID pandemic, audits estimate that at least $32 billion in fraudulent unemployment claims were paid out. California has spent $24 billion since 2018 to address the ever-growing homeless population in the state. The homeless population has only increased by 26% since 2018, and they're spending like $100,000 per homeless person. So how does that work? Fraud, scam, $24 billion. Another $18 billion has been spent to build a high-speed train. Problem is, nothing exists. They've built nothing. There's nothing to show from $18 billion. It's like the joke, the high-speed train to nowhere, but you can't even get on it and go nowhere because it doesn't exist. 34% of California's community college applicants, fraudulent. Individuals committing financial aid fraud. California's food stamp program has one of the highest improper payment rates in the nation at 13.4%. But it's estimated that at least 15% of the benefits on that program fraudulent. Where does the money go? Oh yeah, to NGOs. to corrupt people who line their pockets with our tax dollars. Oh, I like this one. California spent $650 million to upgrade our 911 system. No upgrade. Nope. Just $650 million. Poof. Gone. Oh, and here's some tea. This one's juicy. Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff was indicted on 23 counts of bank and wire fraud in November 2025, tied to campaign finance abuses. Oh, and this adds to the growing list of insider dealings out of Newsom's administration, because it's all fraud. It's all a scam for them to get rich off of. It's almost like Trump hired a group of very, very smart people to find all this fraud, waste, and abuse for a reason. It's almost like it's real and it's worse than we can imagine and it needs to be exposed. But no, the liberals hate that. They're going to twist that narrative because they're on the receiving end. So they're going to somehow brainwash people into burning Teslas and rioting in the name of continuing fraud.
And that's what makes it so crazy, is that they are rioting because we're exposing the fraud. It just makes them look even worse. California promised high-speed rail from San Fran to L.A. Got nothing.
Them that they would. We are here in California to see what $15 billion looks like in Gavin Newsom's California. Not one train track! In 2008, it sounds like he scammed, frauded, and lied to voters by telling them that they would have a high-speed rail by 2020 at the cost of around $20 billion. Well, it's 2026 and they've already spent $15 billion and not one track has been laid and not one train has moved. The other problem with this, besides this absolutely being empty and literally being a train to nowhere, is that people want to be able to travel cheaply, and the cost of going on this train might just be as much as going on an airplane. So they might not even really have customers. I believe that they are going to go over their now estimated budget of over $130 billion. As you guys can see, nothing is happening here. They have a concrete block blocking off the road and this gate so that nobody can access it. But again, it's just a big concrete blob. I really do wonder if I will ever see it in my lifetime. I think that it's more probable that we're going to build lunar bases than this high-speed rail to work. We're going to drive about 20 minutes from here where there's another...
Yeah, the train to nowhere continues. Looks like Gavin Newsom not only has these fraudulent daycares running in California too, but he's actively working to hide the records. Yeah, remember we brought that to your attention the other day? Well, there's more.
After what's been exposed with the daycares in Minnesota, I'm a licensed private investigator in California. I started looking into state records and I found ghost daycares. These are places where the state inspectors showed up. There would be 28 kids enrolled and there were no kids there in the middle of the day and in the middle of the week.
All right. So a ghost daycare. Is that something Gavin Newsom could say, all right, we'll try to shut that down? Does he cooperate when you start raising this?
No. In fact, today, it got word from the governor's office. There's been a directive to actually shut down public access. So right now, you can't even search the own state website to look into these ghost daycares, but I have found a workaround.
Okay, well, we don't want to tell the governor that you found a workaround, but it does sound like he's trying to cover his tracks. Like this is a cover-up.
That's what they're doing. They don't want the public to investigate, so they lock down the sites and access to it. Benny Johnson, Gavin Newsom spent $24 billion on solving homelessness. That adds up to $170,000 per person, homeless person in California.
You realize, though, maybe in California. And if that is true, much of the credit will belong to my next guest, Benny Johnson, host of The Benny Show. Benny, great to see you. When did you realize that California was worse than Minnesota?
Yes. So California is the fraud capital of the world. And here's how you know.
let's go ahead and look at just one program in California that the state budget, which is enormous, is supposed to solve. The homelessness crisis. Now, you can travel to any city in California and you will find tent cities, broken down RVs, people living on the street, people defecating on the street, people behaving in dangerous ways towards children and towards families and towards the taxpaying citizens of California. You shouldn't allow that in America. California knows that this is a problem. Gavin Newsom knows this is a problem, and they spent $24 billion on homelessness in California over the last few years. Brian, that's $160,000 per homeless person spent by the state of California. Now, where I'm from, in Iowa, $160,000 will buy you a home. You could just buy a home for every homeless person. This is what California has done. Now, what happened in the course of spending that enormous amount? Has homelessness gotten better or worse in California? In fact, homelessness, the rate of homelessness has grown by 30,000 people. It's skyrocketed. Travel any street, go anywhere, but I would advise you, Brian, to go ahead and look right here at the map of Gavin Newsom's city. This is San Francisco's public defecation map. This is what one of America's once greatest and most beautiful cities, one of the most prosperous and richest cities, has been turned into.
So here's the through line they don't want you to see. Fraud, sanctuary policies, NGO money pipelines, record destruction, media silence. This is not incompetence. It's an ecosystem. Minnesota cracked first. California is next. The same federal forces tearing into Minneapolis are preparing to turn their attention on Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, and other cities and other states. That's why Newsom is panicking. That's why the media is preemptively calling these investigations dangerous, because they know it's coming. And once the audits, indictments, and subpoenas hit California at full scale, the narrative won't be about politics anymore. It'll be how deep the fraud ran and who got rich while the state collapsed. And this matters because California is not just a state, it's a blueprint. What happens there spreads everywhere, just like it started in Minnesota. And right now, that blueprint is fraud, decay, and accountability. Accountability-free governance. $32 billion stolen through unemployment scams, $76 billion alleged fraudulent spending, $24 billion burned on homelessness with nothing to show. Ghost daycares draining public funds, $100 billion train to nowhere, and a governor who watches it all collapse while hiding records from investigators. The fire that started in Minnesota has spread west in the same patterns, the same protection rackets, the same refusal to answer questions. Gavin Newsom watched Tim Walz fall. He knows fraud's the career killer. The investigations are coming. So should Gavin Newsom face criminal charges for fraud and mismanagement? Yes or no? Drop it in the chat. And represent accountability. Hit the Next News merch shop. Link in the description. And that's where we're at, America. We started the show by remembering what happened 35 years ago today, or yesterday, January 12th, 1991. Congress authorized military force against Iraq. It was the most divided vote since 1812, but when American interests were threatened and adversary crossed the line, our leaders made the choice, even though the choice was made based on false evidence. And they chose clarity over comfort. They chose action over paralysis. They chose to defend what matters despite the whole incubator thing. But tonight we're watching whether this generation has the same resolve. The Federal Reserve Chairman is under criminal investigation. Grand jury subpoenas have landed on the most powerful financial institution in the world. Jerome Powell stands accused of lying to Congress about billions in taxpayer money. Peter Navarro calls him the poster child for corruption. Anna Paulina Luna referred him for prosecution, and President Trump is preparing to replace him. For over a century, the Fed operated above the law. That era is finally ending. In the Arctic, President Trump is forcing a conversation the establishment has avoided for decades. Greenland is not a bargaining chip. It is the keystone of the North Atlantic defense. 2/3 of NATO's capability comes from America. And Trump is demanding accountability from allies who've been freeloading on our taxpayers for generations. The media calls it reckless. Well, it's not. It's leadership. Minnesota is cracked wide open. $700 million smuggled out through Somali courier networks. Tim Walz facing criminal referrals. Ilhan Omar under investigation. Jacob Frey finally admitting what we've said all along, that the fraud is real. Federal agents have made over 1,000 arrests, and they're just getting started. The next video release is described as 10 times worse than what's already shocked the nation. This is a full-scale reckoning. And ICE officers being hunted down in American streets. A woman weaponized her vehicle against federal agents. Agitators calling for armed resistance. Politicians blame the officers instead of the criminals. But Texas showed the way. Governor Abbott reminded everyone Texas is not Minnesota. Law and order can be enforced when leaders have the courage to enforce it. And now California bracing for impact. $32 billion in unemployment fraud. $76 billion in alleged fraudulent spending. Ghost daycares. NGO money laundering. $100 billion train to nowhere. Gavin Newsom watched Tim Walz fall, and he knows he is next. The investigators are coming for Sacramento. 35 years ago, Congress faced a test and passed. Tonight, America faces a different kind of test. Will we hold the powerful accountable? Will we enforce our own laws? Will we defend our interests at home and abroad? The answer is being written right now. So thank you to everyone who sent in super chats and Rumble rants. You guys keep the show running. Tell your friends about the Raw Feed. Hit the merch shop in the description. Go to rawfeed.live/live and join our text message notification list. And remember, the truth doesn't tell itself. I'm Gary Franchi, and we'll see you on the next Raw Feed.